Lloyd is a snotty little brat who belongs to a mystical village called Conlan, which is located around this world's last and most dangerous dungeon. In his hometown, he is considered to be the weakest kid as he can't even catch a lousy rabbit, and always gets his ass kicked in the forest by tiny creatures. After growing up a little bit, he decides to become a soldier in the kingdom's army and heads to the starter town where the palace is located. There, he goes on to meet this hottie named Marie, who is also known as the Witch of the East Side. Unfortunately for her, she suffers from cringe syndrome and acts like she's some hot shot by saying that since ancient times, witches have granted wishes to desperate souls, but it always comes at a severe cost. Then she asks Lloyd about his wish and what he's willing to sacrifice for it, but the little boy innocently replies that he is there to become a soldier, and that he will be staying with her for a little while. Marie looks at his dumb face and tells him to go find an inn or something while shooing him off. But then Lloyd takes out a crystal ball and tells her that he's from Conlan, which makes her start sweating her pants. She immediately bows down in front of the crystal ball, and we see a young lowly grandma come out of it, introducing herself as the head of the village, Alka. It turns out that Alka is Marie's master in witchcraft, and she requests her to take care of young Lloyd because he will one day grow up to become the legendary Rizlord. Marie wonders what she is supposed to do about that. Teach him Rizcraft and turn him into a Rizzard or what? She tries to ask her a question, but Alka says that it is just a recording, and Marie starts calling her a crazy little lowly monster. But then Alka says that she was just kidding, making Marie get back on the ground like the coward she is. With no other choice, she accepts the request and then throws the crystal ball inside her cupboard before sending Lloyd to a room in the back to stay there like the slave he is. She thinks that Lloyd is actually a really fine child for someone who knows the little monster. But then Alka walks out of her cupboard saying she used teleportation magic and tells her to make sure nothing bad happens to her Lloyd, and that she has cursed Marie with getting rickrolled for the rest of her life. Marie begs for forgiveness, and Alka changes the curse to make it so she takes small L's repeatedly throughout her life. After that, Alka teleports away and Marie's miserable life begins as she steps forward and ends up tripping over her own dress and falls face first on the ground. After that, she tears her dress a little bit and starts crying over this curse. The next morning, Marie wakes up to some sweet smell and opens her eyes to see her newly acquired slave boy cooking up some breakfast for her. Lloyd brings it to the table and greets her good morning, and then they talk about his obsession with becoming a soldier and remaining a virgin all his life. He says that he is the weakest boy in his village and he couldn't rizz up any girls at all, so now he wants to grow up to become a legendary hero just like his big brother, who is basically the cousin that your Asian parents compare you to. Marie then asks him if he knows what's on the entrance exam, and he says that he knows there will be a written exam about magic, a combat exam, and an interview. And Marie tells him that among them, the combat exam is the most important one. Lloyd says that he knows, and stamina is his weakest stat as it took him 6 whole days to reach here. Marie says that it's alright as Conlan is quite some ways from their kingdom of Azami, so reaching here in 6 days by train isn't so bad. Lloyd says that he didn't come here by train, he simply ran like David Goggins. Hearing this, Marie starts panicking and says that his stamina is crazy, but Lloyd says that his grandpa said it would have taken him only 2 days to make that journey. Turns out, he is the actual grandson of that grandpa who used to cross mountains and fight lions on his way to school back in the days. Marie asks him if he encountered any monsters on his way here, and he says that he didn't, but there were lots of wild animals on his way like huge bugs and fire-breathing lizards, and Marie realizes that he is not only ignorant, he is stupid as well. Marie starts tearing up over the fact that Alka sent another monster her way, and Lloyd gives her a handkerchief to wipe her face with and thanks her for being so encouraging. Just then, Marie notices that her skin feels really soft and smooth and asks him how that happened. He says that he simply applied an ancient rune over the cloth and it gives it simple enchanting properties. Hearing this, Marie starts wondering just how opus this kid is that he knows the ancient rune, Disenchant, which can remove all kinds of curses that took her 3 years to master as a seasoned witch. While she is going crazy and banging through walls, Lloyd continues to innocently slide into his inferiority complex and apologizes for disappointing her and says that the only other magic that he can do is to summon rain. Marie says that starting tomorrow, instead of magic, he will be learning common sense. After their breakfast, Lloyd walks out and notices that the city is crowded with people. It turns out that the National Foundation Festival is close and hears rumors about lots of people wanting to join the military, some spies trying to infiltrate the kingdom, and some people trying to sneak in some monsters as well. Just like one does, he ignores all of this and says that he will focus on passing his exam and runs out. Meanwhile, a girl that goes by the name Belt Princess runs into a man who tells her that she is a disgrace to the nobility. She runs into an alleyway and surprisingly comes across a giant locust monster. It knocks her back and is about to make a beautiful meal out of her, but just then Lloyd jumps in from above and smashes the insect into the ground. After that, he picks it up and eats it to another world and complains that the city has so many bugs. He then helps the girl up on her feet and rubs some dirt off her clothes. After that, he wipes her head with his handkerchief and walks away after catching her name, Selin. After meeting him, Selin goes back to her room and starts simping for the boy she just met. She wonders if she should wear makeup and then looks at the belt wrapped around her head and starts crying, thinking back on her past as she stupidly equipped the belt on her head and it turned out to have the curse of binding enchantment from Minecraft. She remembers that the noble priest told her to not lose hope and that one day strength will remove this curse from her and starts pulling on it. To her surprise, the belt comes off easily and she figures that it must be the doing of that cute boy she met earlier, and instantly falls in love with him. Eventually, the entrance exam day comes and everyone gathers in the plaza to join the military academy. The instructors notice some of the famous names like the Belt Princes, the one-armed mercenary, Riho, and the eldest son of some noble, Alan. They say that their relations with neighboring countries are only getting worse, and amidst all of this, their princess has also gone missing, so they must recruit promising students for a prosperous future. Meanwhile, Riho is about to pee her pants while sitting beside Lloyd as her spidey senses keep telling her to keep her distance from this last dungeon monster. Just then Lloyd starts speaking to her, but she freaks out and takes up a battle stance. He apologizes for making her scared, but just then she gets pushed into the wall and wonders if she was hit by truck Kun, but it turns out to be only Selin, who is there to simp after Lloyd and asks Riho what kind of a business she had with her sweetheart. Soon the exam begins and they all line up in front of the metal dummies and are asked to attack them with any weapon of their choice. Riho walks up to the instructor and asks her what kind of a monster he scouted, referring to Lloyd, and he says that he has no idea, and he just picked him randomly, and now he's not sure if they will all be able to stop him together if he decides to fight back. Soon, his turns come and he walks up for his combat exam. Some days later, the results for the exam come in and Alka walks in and sits down with Marie, wondering if he will make it. She says that even if he thinks he is weak, in reality, Lloyd is crazy strong, so he should be fine as he belongs to the village formed by the ancient saviors of their world who settled outside the last dungeon, Conlan. On the other hand, Lloyd finds out that his name is not among the accepted candidates on the result board. Later that morning, Instructor Conlan calls out attendance for the new recruits while Selin, Riho, and Instructor Meltfin lose their minds over the fact that Lloyd didn't make it. The girls look at Meltfin for answers, but he is just as confused and later asks his examiner about it. Meanwhile, Conlan informs the students about their kingdom's foreign politics and how they are about to go to war with their neighbors, the Jiu Empire, as their princess is missing during this important time. There is a reward issued for anyone who will find her and bring her back. Meanwhile, Lloyd feels down about his failure and drags his ass back to Marie's place. On his way, he casually tosses away some locust monsters and reads an advertisement for a part-time job at a diner. He goes to the place and walks in and instantly gets attacked by the owner, who is a former royal guard and the personal escort of the missing princess. Lloyd says that he is there to apply for the part-time job as he is feeling really sad over his failure to pass the military exam. The owner, Chrome, thinks that it's an obvious lie and wonders if Lloyd is an assassin who is there to extract information out of him, as he can sense just how opus he is. Despite all his worries, Lloyd's oblivious is really there for the part-time job, and he ends up getting it after cooking up a delicious meal and cleaning the place up with his hack of a handkerchief. Chrome decides to keep him close, as it would be better to keep an eye over him rather than letting such a monster run loose in the city. Back at the academy, Selin and the others check Lloyd's exam sheet, and it turns out he drew some random lines and symbols in his written exam, and the examiner failed him for that. Conlan takes a long look at the answer sheet and realizes that these lines were actually ancient runes and wonders how Lloyd knew about such ancient magic. Selin says that she would find the princess, and as a reward, she will have Lloyd enroll into the academy, and everyone agrees to it. On the other hand, Lloyd walks back home and tells Alka and Marie about his failure. They both get shocked at this result, and Alka asks if it's about time for her to destroy this kingdom, but Elpid says that he wants to take the exam again next year, and for that he wants to stay with Marie for some more time, and that he will even pay rent as he has got himself a part-time job. He asks Alka for permission and she grants it, saying she can't refuse the request of a cute kid from her village. After that, Lloyd walks into his room and Alka says that she will go back to the village as they would be missing her. Just then, Marie says that if she is free enough to come and annoy her all the time like this, then shouldn't she save this kingdom? Alka asks how bad it was and Marie says that it had been a few years since the king suddenly became an advocate for wars and their kingdom is soon going to war with the empire. Alka says that the Conlan village will only jump in when the situation is something beyond normal humans like a demon lord or some world-ending calamity. But as far as stupid wars and egoistic battles go, they can go and blow themselves up. As far as she is concerned, it's none of her business. Hearing this, Marie says that this was the reason she went on a 5-year journey to meet Master Alka and learn the disenchant rune from her. She says that she will stop this war at any cost, but Alka warns her to keep Lloyd outside of this mess or else she will personally raze the kingdom to the ground. After that, she walks back inside the cupboard to teleport back to her village and blesses Marie with the curse of mid-level misfortune every time she calls her lowly grandma. For reference, it can result in a bad cramp. To take her revenge, Marie tosses the crystal ball into a water well for the next time when Alka tries to come here. The next day, Meltfin enjoys a meal with Riho inside the diner, and they talk about recruiting Lloyd. Lloyd wonders why this place is suddenly so full, as it used to be pretty unpopular and grimy, and people thought of it as a place to get cheap, disgusting food. Just then, their meal arrives and they notice that it is simply delicious. Riho asks about the owner and Meltfin tells her about his identity as a former royal guard and asks him how his place became so clean and good overnight. He says that it's thanks to their new worker, and just then Lloyd walks out, making both of them spit their food out in surprise. Meltfin asks Chrome about Lloyd's true identity, and he says that he doesn't know and asks why they failed such a monster in the exam. Meanwhile, Lloyd walks back to take the trash out and notices Marie walking into an alleyway. He follows after her and ends up in the plaza with a crowd of students surrounding Selin and Alan, who are having an argument. Alan challenges Selin and jumps at her with his battle axe, but Selin's cursed belt turns out to have sentience and it pushes the axe away from Alan's hands. Just then, Lloyd arrives on the scene and Selin goes to simp over him. Conlan and Meltfin arrive on the scene as well, and Meltfin asks Alan if it is true that he is going to fight Lloyd there. Being a truly righteous noble, Alan says that he knows better to fight civilians outside the academy. But to everyone's surprise, Meltfin tells him to read the room and that he should crush the boy and prove that the knights are not to be messed with. Alan sees this as a chance to show off his abilities in front of the instructor, while Conlan wonders why Meltfin is doing this, as usually he would be the one to tell everyone to keep discipline. He tells Conlan that Lloyd is the ancient runes kid they were talking about earlier, and they both start pumping Alan up to fight him. Conlan asks Meltfin if Alan will be fine, and he says that as long as he doesn't let Lloyd land a solid hit, he should be able to live, as he is known for his durability. But unfortunately for him, Alan thanks Lloyd for giving him this opportunity to show off and offers him to land the first hit on his face. Lloyd says alright and proceeds to punch him straight in the face. It looks like Alan will die after all, and they prepare for his burial, but just then a wind tornado forms around them and it turns out to be Marie. She takes Lloyd with her and flies into the air. She lands on a rooftop and tells Lloyd to be careful or else he would have sent Alan to Narnia. He thinks that she saved him from getting beat in public and apologies for troubling her. Looking at his dumb yet innocent Riz, she can't help but go Sanji for him and starts bleeding from her nose. She tells him to be careful or else he could be easily tricked by some evil woman like herself. Just then, Chrome arrives in the street and looks at her on the rooftop. They both come down and Chrome sends Lloyd back to the diner and bends his knee for the witch and reveals that she is actually the missing princess of their kingdom, Marie. And since the day she went missing 5 years ago, he has kept a low profile and quit the army. She says that on the third day of the National Foundation Festival, there will be an international conference and their enemy is sure to manipulate the king and announce war on the Jiu Empire. She says that they must stop that from happening and asks Chrome for his help. Meanwhile, back in the academy, Meltfin is revising the curriculum for the new students and Conlan asks him why he is so serious about this. He reveals that when he was a kid, a famine hit his village and they had nothing to get out of it. Just then, the Jiu Empire attacked them and took away what little supplies they had left, and he doesn't want all that to happen again. Later that day, Riho and Selin walk across the city streets and Riho says that they must find the princess first or else they won't be able to get Lloyd enrolled in the academy even if they found him. To that end, she says that today they will go to the famous information peddler, Marie the Witch of the East, and ask her about the missing princess. But to their surprise, when they reach there, they find Lloyd opening the door instead of the famous witch. Selin instantly goes into depression, wondering why Lloyd was living with the witch. Soon, Marie walks in as well and realizes that she has some guests over. She greets them and asks them why they were there, and they tell him that they want to buy some information about a girl in the picture. Marie takes a look and realizes that they are looking for the princess, and says that she doesn't deal with missing princesses and stuff. Riho starts getting suspicious of her and her looks, while Selin asks her how long she had been working as a witch in the kingdom. She says that it has been 2 years and realizes that they know about her identity, and are perhaps disappointed in her as the princess who is playing fantasy tea parties while her kingdom is about to go to war. She decides to come clean and reveals her identity as the princess, but in reality, Selin was only asking if she was Lloyd's wife by any chance. She says that she wasn't and that he was more like a nephew to her. Just then, Lloyd comes back with some drinks for the guests, and says that he knew about Marie's true identity as well, and says that she is actually a superhero who saves them from the shadows, Batwoman. Marie wonders where he got that idea from, but decides to go along with him and pretends to be just that in front of him. Lloyd says that he wants to help as well, but she tells him that he is still too weak and he should work hard and join the academy, as he is not cut out to be a hero alongside her just yet. Hearing this, Lloyd becomes sad and he runs back to his room like a little sissy and cries over his weakness. Once he's gone, Marie sits down with the girls and tells them that Lloyd is actually from the legendary village of Conlan, and it's a rule for their people to stay out of regular human wars, and if he helps them he will be punished and sent back home, and his dreams of becoming a cool soldier will come down crashing. So, to stop that from happening, they must deal with this situation and save the kingdom themselves, and ask for their help in saving the king and stopping the war. She tells them that whoever is controlling the king has put up a bounty on her head, and that's why the whole kingdom is after her head. After they are all gone, Alka teleports here inside the water well, and then comes to Marie and praises her for keeping her promise. After that, she says that she will take care of Lloyd and they should complete their mission. With that, she walks down but blesses Marie with another curse that makes her say meow at the end of sentence 1 out of 10 times. Just like that, the National Foundation Festival comes and Alka decides to take Lloyd out and tries to cheer him up. She even admits that she wants his chocolate banana, and I'll let all you dirty-minded people in the comments wonder what she meant by that. The kingdom then suddenly gets attacked by some locust monsters and they start fighting them. On the other hand, the king decides to announce the war with Jiu, and Chrome walks inside the castle and requests to be re-enlisted in the army. Meltfin is standing by the king and tells him that he sees no problem in that and they will call him later, but Chrome says that he hasn't told this to anyone else yet, but he actually met the princess and some of her friends, and from their investigation, they found out that the person behind this war is someone who has the habit of saying Demacia. Meltfin looks at him and asks if it's Garen, but Chrome says that no, it was Meltfin, and he admits to his crimes. He says that he thought that such a foolish king was better as a puppet so they could punish the Jiu Empire for their war crimes. Just then, Riho and Selin walk in alongside Marie and say that it was surprisingly kind of him to confess to his crimes like that. Just then, the king turns around and starts glowing with some demonic tattoos over his face. He says that in reality it was him who was controlling the humans and who sent Jiu soldiers to Meltfin's village when he was a child so he could raise more hatred among humans. After that, he blasts Meltfin back into a wall, and then transforms him into a bug monster and commands him to fight the intruders. Chrome and the others hold him back and let Marie follow after the corrupt king. Inside the throne room, Marie and the king start fighting each other with magical abilities. Marie shoots him with a wind attack, but he blocks it by making the ceiling collapse over her. She dodges the rubble and then freezes it, blocking the king's attack. After that, she shoots a fire spell to counter the king's energy beam and it blasts into the ice and creates mist. With that, Marie uses it to camouflage herself and jumps in towards the king to use the disenchant spell on him and break him away from the curse, but the curse makes her stop but showing the kind face of her father and then pushes her back on the ground. After that, he walks up to her and breaks her hand and says that it is now the end for her, and he, Demon Lord Abaddon, will now put her down and take over this kingdom once and for all. Hearing that he is a Demon Lord, Marie becomes really mad. She says that he should have told this to her days ago so she wouldn't go through all this trouble. Being a demon king means the lowly grandma can totally help out with this one, and even bringing Lloyd in wouldn't have been a problem. With that said, she immediately runs back with her tail between her legs and makes him chase after him, hoping to run into Lloyd or Alka. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Alka finish their pest control job with the demonic locusts, and Lloyd says that he wants to go and help Marie even if she gets mad and if he is super weak. Alka allows it and he runs to the castle. On his way, he runs into Alan, who is hiding behind a carrot in an alley from the locust monsters. Lloyd gives him a lecture on being strong and how fear is nothing to be ashamed of. With that, he defeats the locust monster like usual and then runs back to the castle. His words inspire Alan and he decides to face the monsters head on and starts being useful. At the same time, Alka realizes that these are the minions of the Demon Lord, Abaddon, and she flattens them all by going Madara on them for ruining her date with Lloyd. On the other hand, Chrome fights Insectfin and gets his ass handed to him on the ground. After that, he fights Riho and pushes her into a wall, making her tap out as well. When things look bad, Selen decides to call Lloyd. She walks up to Insectfin and tells him to go ham on her and try to hurt her. She says that Lloyd is a true hero and he will come just before any attack lands on her, but even if he doesn't, she would use this chance to get a little bit beat up and have her armor torn a bit so she can show off in front of Lloyd later on when he arrives. Insectfin jumps forward and attacks her with his claws, but unfortunately for all you perverted weebs in the comments section, her belt blocks it and we get no fan service. After that, Insectfin continues to attack her, but all his strikes are blocked by the belt. Riho tells Selen to keep him busy and then walks out to find Lloyd. But before she can jump out, she runs into Lloyd, who jumps inside the palace in search of Marie. He asks everyone if they are okay and then ignores Selen like the Sigma male he is. After that, he turns to Insectfin and says that he now understands what is happening. He asks him what he is doing and if he isn't ashamed of acting like this while being a soldier. Insectfin jumps at him and tries to attack him, but Lloyd simply slaps him away and then makes him kiss the floor. He tells him how in his mind a soldier is someone who protects others and tells him to think back to the moment when he became a soldier himself and that he is sure he didn't become one to do what he is doing right now. After using Talk no Jutsu on him, Insectfin starts reverting to his human form as he remembers his village and how he wanted peace. He almost goes back to normal, but then Lloyd says that he shouldn't have drunk so much and now he is wearing this funny insect costume and dancing like an idiot. Hearing these dumb comments, he becomes mad again and transforms back into Insectfin. He attacks him, but Lloyd dodges it by bending back and then simply headbutts him, accidentally sending him back into a wall, and defeats him. After that, Lloyd asks the others about Marie, and they tell him that she is inside the throne room. Lloyd decides to go in, but just then Marie comes out and hugs him. She tells him that she is glad to see him there, but then the king comes up behind her and Lloyd stops talking. He walks up to him and tells him to go away as there are monsters in the castle. The king wonders what he is going on about, and Lloyd thinks that he must be a drunk person dressed in a king costume with some green paint on his face. With that, he decides to wipe his ugly face with his handkerchief and ends up disenchanting the curse which let the demon lord control the king. Just like that, peace returns to the kingdom and Lloyd watches on as everyone fixes up the damage done on the festival. While standing outside, he meets his brother, Shoma, who happens to be passing by. They hug each other and Shoma praises him for becoming so strong and defeating the demon lord. Lloyd wonders what he is speaking about, and just then Alka arrives on the scene as well. Lloyd tells her that he was talking to Shoma, but he vanishes from the scene just like y'all's father did when you were young. Meanwhile, Chrome joins the army once again and Meltfin is sent to a wheat field near Conlan, where Alka punishes him by making him harvest and deliver a special wheat that grows all year round to the poor villages. Some days later, Lloyd gets accepted into the military academy on someone's recommendation. This someone turns out to be Alan, who was given a reward for his contribution in killing monsters in the recent events. For his reward, he asked them to let Lloyd enroll into the academy. Besides that, he starts calling Lloyd his master for teaching him such valuable lessons. Selen and the others also come to pick him up for his first day, and Alka notices that Selen's belt is made up of the skin of a divine beast called Vritra. She wonders how a legendary artifact from her village ended up around her waist, but doesn't worry about it too much. Marie becomes mad at them for talking at the door like some Indian family and then sends them all off to the academy. With everything back to normal, Marie and Chrome decide to take Lloyd to the famous Holy Sword village for some trash cleanup duty. While cleaning up the site of the Holy Sword that is stuck in stone and is said to be irremovable, Lloyd casually takes it out thinking that it is some toy trash. Just like that, the Holy Sword village and all its economy crashes down like Dogecoin, and they all return to the city. Some days later at the academy, Conlan walks in and says that from now on they will do practical lessons to train for the upcoming inter-school match against Rokujo Sorcery Academy. It's an annual event where both schools compete in magic battles, but their Azami Academy has been on a losing streak for the past few years, just like y'all's League of Legends match history. With that, they all go outside in the ground and Conlan explains that there are 3 types of sorcerers. Those who use chants, those who use sigils, and lastly those who use magic stones and wands. They are allowed to use all of them and will be practicing some spells on an anti-magic dummy. After that, they all practice a simple fireball spell to see who will take part in the upcoming match, and Lloyd ends up failing the test once again for being too opus. He ends up jumbling his words, but the spell still burns away the whole place behind the dummy. After that, he tries a bunch of other spells, but all of them end up causing massive destruction, and to keep things fair, they fail the poor guy. After that, they all continue their practice and Selin walks up to Conlan and asks her to teach her healing magic so she can use it for flirting techniques with Lloyd. Conlan says that they will need an injured person to practice on, and Selin decides to ruin Alan's life because she only simps for one guy and he's not it. Back at Marie's house, she is greeted by the 2 mercenary sisters from the Rokujo Academy, Mina and Philo. They show her a picture of Riho and ask her for information on her. Marie becomes alert, but just then the sisters feel an extremely intense presence of someone super strong and prepare to attack them to save their lives. They look at the door and as expected, it's our dumbass, Lloyd. Philo drop kicks him and then follows up with a sidekick on his ribs, but Lloyd stands there still like the giga chat he is, and then notices a fly flying past him and thinks that she must be trying to get it and apologizes for coming in her way. Having witnessed this crazy boy for the first time, Mina and Philo wonder what's his deal, and Lloyd walks up and ruins Marie's business by saying that the girl in the picture was Riho, and she goes to the academy with him. After that, Philo walks up to him and asks him to make her his pupil, but Marie kicks them both out and tells them to go find somewhere else to live. Once they are gone, Alka teleports in and asks Marie about taking Lloyd to the Holy Sword Village. She tells her that it was just for some work and they call it a day. The next day, the students are continuing their practice for the upcoming match, and Chrome decides to set up a prize for the winners. Back on the training ground, Riho asks Conlan why she is so pumped up about this match, and she says that it is because her rival is the headmaster of the Rokujo Academy, and she wants to beat the snake woman herself. Riho wonders who she is talking about, but just then the woman in question arrives herself and introduces herself as Raul. It turns out she used to be Colin's classmate, and she would rise in ranks by manipulating others and getting her competition expelled. By using her underhanded methods, she has now become the headmaster of the academy. Raul also seems to know Riho and walks up to her, and this puts Riho in a bad mood. After that, Lloyd notices that Riho is looking sad all day, and he decides to ask for some advice from Marie. He asks her how to make a girl happy, and she thinks that he must be asking this to surprise her because why not? She tells him to take the girl on a date, and Lloyd decides to take Riho on a date the next day. This disappoints Marie and makes Selin even more jealous than she already was. While on the date, Lloyd asks her about her past and why she was sad, and she reveals that she grew up in an orphanage and one of her arms was always weak. Back then, Raul used to be her bigger sister, and one day she brought the mithril arm for her. She thought that now she could help others as well, but it turned out that Raul just wanted her to use the arm to give up her life and pull out the holy sword. This arm constantly sucks magical energy, and she was betrayed by the only person she used to look up to. Hearing this, Lloyd holds her hand and tells her to trust him and that he will be there for her whenever she needs a friend. Just then, Selin also comes out from underneath their table and starts crying. She tells Riho that they will work hard and show that Snake Woman how strong they are. The next day, it's time for the inter-school match demonstration, and for the participants, Selin and Riho are chosen. They still need a third member, so the head of the second-year class, Makona, jumps in for the position. She seems to hold some kind of grudge against Lloyd for some reason and tells him that she will show him just how much better than him she is. After that, the match begins and she is paired up against Philo. She charges up wind and fire spells and then charges at her, but Philo uses a magic item and sends her out of the ring with a stream of water. After getting one shot by her, Makona feels really down and runs out of the school. She then goes to Marie, and it turns out that she used to visit her a lot before Lloyd came in, but then she got busy with ranking up in the academy, so she couldn't come as often. She asks her to tend to her wounds and they sit down to enjoy some coffee like the good old days, but then Lloyd comes back and walks into the kitchen with Marie as they happily discuss what they will have for dinner. Makona runs out and sits down in an alley and cries for having such bad luck. But then she meets a boy who is walking by, and he tells her that he will lend her an ear if she is feeling heavy and wants to let it out. This boy turns out to be Shoma, and yeah, the plot thickens. The next day, the actual inter-school match begins with Selin and Riho participating from Azami's side, while Mina and Philo walk in as Rokujo candidates. To spice things up, Chrome announces that the winner of the match will be rewarded with the Holy Sword, and this freaks both Riho and Raul out because that's what their life was all about. Raul says that if the Holy Sword is the prize, she will resign as the headmaster and participate as a student herself. To make things fair, Conlan decides to let Lloyd enter as well. With that, the match begins, and it is set to be a series of one-on-one battles, with the first school to get 2 wins will win the match. First up, Selin and Philo come face to face, and being a martial artist, Philo simply stands her ground and shoots out random spells from a magic stone. By rule, she isn't allowed to use physical attacks, but the magic spells prove to be strong enough as well. At first, Selin just stands there thinking that her belt will do the magic and take care of the match, but to her surprise the belt tells her to be useful for once and leaves her to her means. Selin starts running for her life and uses Talk no Jutsu on the belt and eventually manages to tame it. With that, she easily blocks all the magic spells and binds Philo with the belt. She goes on to squeeze her hard, and Philo tries to punch her back, but the proctor calls it a match and announces Philo as the winner because using magic items other than wands and magic stones is against the rules. Next up, it's Mina versus Lloyd, and their battle starts with Mina putting some distance between them. She then casts a smart water spell which makes a water prison around Lloyd's head. She plans to suffocate him and make him surrender, but Lloyd simply holds his breath like a Giga Chad and simply stands there wondering why she is giving him a face wash. 20 minutes go by and Lloyd is still standing there like a fish, so Mina decides to change her tactics. This time, she uses a long chant to use a high-class water magic, but Lloyd counters it with a wind spell and makes it look like she self-destructed by chanting something wrong. With Mina out of the arena, Lloyd is named the victor, and their match comes to the final battle between Raul and Riho. Their fight begins with both of them shooting a lot of fireballs at each other. This goes on for quite some time, but Raul knows that Riho will run out of magic before her due to her mithril arm. After their fireworks show, Riho jumps back to gain some distance, but Raul swiftly zooms in and takes off her mithril arm. This makes Riho fall on the ground, and Raul says that she will end their fight once and for all. But then Riho starts smiling like some anime protagonist and goes in for a punch. Just before connecting, her arm explodes and it pushes Raul back on the ground. It turns out, Riho used healing magic to plant a magic stone inside her arm to launch a surprise attack on Raul. After that, she heals her messed up arm once again and walks up to her while chanting a high-class water spell. Hearing her walk up to her all victorious, Raul chickens out and goes unconscious, but Riho says that she was just faking it as she doesn't have any magic power left. Just like that, their school wins the match and Riho is sent to the hospital to recover. The Holy Sword is given to Lloyd as the representative of the winning school. Later that night, Raul gains her consciousness back and wakes up in the infirmary room. She asks one of her fellow students about the whereabouts of the Holy Sword, and the guy tells her that it is with Lloyd, and they found out that the person who took it out of the stone is someone called the Witch of the East Side, and she lives with a younger brother figure whom she is super protective of. Raul thinks that it will be great to have the witch on her side, so she sends Philo to go and kidnap whomever she is overprotective of so they can blackmail her into joining their side. Philo takes the blackmail letter and goes to Marie's house and finds her bowing to a crystal ball and apologizing to it. She thinks that it must be the thing she is most overprotective of and sneaks in after she goes away and steals it. After that, she leaves the letter behind and reports back to Raul. Meanwhile, Lloyd comes back home and finds the clip he bought for Marie on the floor. Besides that, he looks at the letter and it reads that they have kidnapped the one that is most precious to them, and they want them to steal the Holy Sword by any means and come to the tower if they want it back. Lloyd thinks that Marie was kidnapped and runs towards the tower. On his way, he runs into Alan, who is there for some healing cream for his hemorrhoids, and lets us skip over it and get straight to the part where they both go to the tower to save Marie. When they reach there, Philo notices Lloyd running towards them and she jumps down and challenges him to a fight like a maniac. Lloyd gives the sword to Alan and tells him to keep it safe, and then decides to face Philo in all seriousness. Jumps in with a strong punch and a kick and says that she wanted to become his apprentice, but now she wants to fight him to death, and starts laughing like some crazy person. He accepts her challenge and says that he wants her to tell him where Marie is if he wins. She agrees and they both start facing each other. Lloyd thinks back to his childhood and remembers that back in his village a girl once slapped his wrist and broke his arm, so there's no way he can fight Philo. He looks around to make it a fair match somehow for himself and decides on challenging her to an arm wrestling match. He says that back in his village his grandpa, Pirid, used to tell him that in their village all serious quarrels are resolved by arm wrestling, and he wants to honor that custom. Philo asks him about the name of his village and he says it's Conlan. Hearing this, she gets excited and accepts his conditions. Their arm wrestling match starts off just like the one between Tsunade and the Raikage, as they both seem evenly matched. The crate beneath their arms breaks away and they jump in the air to continue their match. Philo manages to gain the upper hand and starts pushing Lloyd's arm down, but then he uses a wind spell and launches them both to the ground and ends up winning the arm wrestling match by touching her hand down. With that, their battle comes to an end and Philo accepts defeat. But then she holds his hands and tells him to let her have his kids, and says that if he is really from Conlan, then he is the right match for her, as she has been seeking a strong man. Meanwhile, Alan is running away with the sword and is getting hunted down by the student who reported to Raul. He refuses to let the sword go because Lloyd entrusted him with it, and fortunately, Mina arrives on the scene and puts the guy down and says that she is there to delay Raul's plans because she insulted her sister and used her as a tool. Later on, they meet up with Lloyd and Philo and she explains the situation about Marie as well, revealing that she didn't kidnap her. At the same time, Raul is looking at them from a distance and she starts thrashing around in front of the crystal, calling them all useless morons. Just then, Alka teleports in and asks her where Lloyd is, and when she fails to tell her what she wants to hear and calls her a pipsqueak, Alka blows her out of the tower with a strong magic blast and lets her fall into the river with her crispy burnt ass. Alan looks at her and decides to jump in and save her as a righteous soldier. The next morning, he makes the news on the front page as a model soldier, and Raul is taken to the hospital where Riho is staying. She thinks back on her childhood and how she wanted to help the orphanage grow and to make Riho happy, and wonders where she went wrong. Meanwhile, we see a white-haired man casting a memory-altering spell on her, and he later turns out to be someone who wants to take revenge from Alka. Some days later, in a forest near the kingdom, people start going into a coma for an unknown reason. No one has died yet, but the symptoms prove to be similar to that of a treant attack. To that end, the kingdom sends in various adventurers and military personnel to investigate the cause and fix it. Among them, Mina and Philo are also sent to check the forest, and from their inspection they think that it's also the doing of some treants. Meanwhile, back at the academy, it is almost time for a long vacation. Before their last day, Riho talks to Lloyd and asks him if he is free over the weekend and would like to go out with her. Selin jumps in as well with some depression and anger and reveals that her plans of going to the beach with Lloyd were ruined because her family summoned her to the main house. Next up, Alan walks in and starts being an attention seeker as he apologizes to Lloyd for not being able to accompany him as his apprentice because someone proposed to him and he has to meet the family during the weekend, though they all simply ignore him and go away. After classes, Lloyd walks back home and finds Marie and Alka fighting over who's going to enjoy some time with Lloyd, but he crushes their ideas by saying that he took a temporary live-in full-time job for the weekend at a hotel that Chrome recommended him to. He wants to learn from his experience, and if they come with him he won't be able to learn on his own, and that's why he wants to go alone. Hearing this, they both start crying and Lloyd simply leaves them behind and goes for his job like a Sigma male. At the hotel, Lloyd introduces himself to the owner of the hotel, Koba, who was formerly the leader of the Royal Guard. Koba instantly feels Lloyd's true strength like Chrome did and falls on his butt from the shock. Koba tells him about people going into a coma in the forest near his hotel and says that it is very bad for business. He wants the matter to be resolved as soon as possible and then takes him to the swimming pool to introduce him to his senior colleague, Kikiyo. He leaves Lloyd with her and tells her to guide him properly, and she turns out to be a bully and makes Lloyd clean the whole pool area by himself. But Lloyd being Lloyd, he cleans the whole place before she finishes her lecture, and Koba also comes back to see how they are doing and gets surprised in Lloyd's effective and efficient cleaning. He then takes him for his next task as a bellboy. He tells him that a major client who was supposed to come tomorrow decided to arrive early, and he is somewhat hard to talk to, so he wants Lloyd to practice his smile and greet him properly. The client turns out to be Lord Threonine, and he is just like my dad, who nitpicks at every little thing, from someone pouring a drink for him to someone greeting him well, and never appreciates it. While looking outside, he calls Lloyd and asks him what he thinks about the cypress forest outside, and Lloyd says that while it looks great, he feels it's a waste. They are planted so properly at regular intervals and are pruned, but before he can complete his sentence, the Lord marvels at the fact that the bellboy knows about pruning, and Lloyd says that the lumberjacks back home told him about this. Hearing this, the Lord says that before they earned a name through battles, they used to be a family of foresters. They hit it off, and the Lord likes Lloyd, and Koba flies him a thumbs up for his good job. The Lord also reveals that he has a boy the same age as Lloyd who studies at Azami Academy, and how he wishes that he would be as smart as Lloyd. Later that night, we find out that Kikiyo is actually one of the Lord's employees and she has been working at the hotel to investigate the coma cases. They suspect Koba of breeding treants in the forest, and as it's going to be pronounced a national treasure soon, investigating it will become significantly difficult. To that end, he wants to find the cause soon and prevent it from turning into a nationwide calamity. He says that he has some news regarding someone stealing a Demon Lord seedling from a research lab that was brought there by a merchant. It is possible that someone has planted in someone to breed and control treants, and some of the symptoms include enhanced physical abilities. He asks Kikiyo if she knows someone like that, and she immediately thinks about Lloyd and says yes. Koba gives her some crack and tells her to make the suspect eat or drink it, and it will expel the seedling from their body and reveal the real culprit. The next morning, Kikiyo looks at Lloyd cutting vegetables like some pro Fruit Ninja player. She confirms that he is Opus and gives him the crack mixed in some tea. But just before Lloyd can drink it, Koba walks in and scolds her for slacking off during work hours and tells Lloyd to take some time off because he has been working hard. He then takes the tea and drinks it himself and instantly spits it out, wondering what kind of Karen made that. Looking at that, Kikiyo jumps out of the window and thinks that Koba did it intentionally to prevent his secret from getting out and says that she will catch him red-handed the next time. Later on, we find out that Riho is enjoying her vacation at the same hotel, and she calls the service in for a full-body massage. Her masseuse turns out to be Lloyd, and she starts panicking and refuses to let him work his hands on her. Meanwhile, we see that Selen's father has decided to bring her to the same hotel to spend some father-daughter time. They go to the hotel and he reveals that he has arranged for her to meet someone as well, and it turns out it's a political marriage arrangement, and the unfortunate boy is none other than the sweaty-ass son of the Lord, Alan. Selen says that she would rather kill him before she gets her proposal history ruined by his face, and plans to attack him with her belt as soon as he walks in. She wonders where the firebombs that she ordered to secretly set the hotel on fire are. She had planned to escape after setting it ablaze to meet Lloyd for her vacation, but then the door opens and she jumps at the guy, but to her surprise, it's Lloyd and she runs away with him. In the storeroom, Riho joins them as well and reveals that Alan slipped in the pool and fell unconscious, so Lloyd was requested to fill in for him as the Lord's son. So, to fill in for him, Riho is acting as a hotel employee, and that's the situation. Lloyd says that as an employee, he wants to get to the bottom of whatever is happening in the hotel, and the girls decide to help him as well. They decide for Riho to look from the inside as an employee, while Selen and Lloyd will look from the outside as guests under the pretext of an arranged marriage meeting. After that, they both go out and act like they are dating, but Riho pulls them aside and scolds them for not doing their job properly. Just then, they see a young man riding towards them with a cart, and it turns out to be Shoma. He is making an express delivery of some sweet firebombs, and Selen remembers that she might be at fault here. Lloyd walks up to him and introduces him to others as someone who lived in his village and is like a big brother to him. After that, he unloads the bombs and goes back because he has more work to do. Meanwhile, Koba suspects the Lord for being behind these coma cases, and it becomes a three-way suspicion game where Koba suspects the Lord suspects Koba, and Selen's father suspects both of them. Back outside, Lloyd and Selen continue their pretend date in a lake where Selen tells him how he saved her and how she was looked down upon due to the belt around her head, and how Lloyd helped her and she loves him for his good nature. Lloyd says that he is nothing and that he has been able to come so far thanks to her and his friends, and thanks her. After that, they go to a pond and soak their feet. Kikiyo is watching them from a distance and decides to go apply the crack on Lloyd's body in the form of an oil massage when Selen is not looking. However, before she can apply the crack to his plot, Selen arrives on the scene and starts fighting her for touching her Lloyd. They both fight for a while, but then Kikiyo makes her escape, and Lloyd says that he wants to get the oil off his body before wearing his uniform again. They decide to go to the hot springs to take a bath, and while there, they run into Riho, Marie, Alka, Mina, and Philo. The whole gang seems to be here, and we all know it's thanks to Lloyd's Riz pheromones. During their bath, Philo yeets Alka into the woods for looking at Lloyd's Excalibur, and Lloyd goes after her because he's Grandma's good boy. Meanwhile, Kikiyo has been keeping watch over them from the woods and barely dodges Alka smashing through the trees. When she comes down, Koba's secretary comes out from the woods and reveals himself to be the host of the Demon Lord seedling. He transforms into a treant and absorbs her magic power using his roots. Kikiyo wonders if he is the real treant, then what was up with Lloyd being so strong and why she wasted so much time chasing after him, but then Lloyd arrives on the scene and asks if the secretary was trying to win Kikiyo's heart by performing in front of her in a treant costume. They both wonder who hurt this boy for him to turn out like this, but then the secretary calls out a lot of normal treats and Lloyd gets busy with cleaning them out. In the meantime, the secretary transforms into a mega treat using the Demon Lord's seedling and starts marching towards the hotel to get the nutrition he needs to create an army of treant to take over the world. In the hotel, Selen's father, Koba, and the Lord are having a meeting over the treants and coma incident, and just then the mega treant breaks through the wall and reveals himself to be the real culprit. The secretary says that he used the Lord's name to buy up the Demon Lord's seedling from Selen's father and then used it to ruin Koba's reputation and business. They all look at his petty wood as he decides to attack the Lord, but our gang arrives on the scene and protects everyone. They engage in a battle with the tree and shoot him with some fire spells, but it turns out to be immune to magic. Philo kicks him out of the building and Selen goes on the offensive with her belt. But during their fight, a piece of the ceiling falls over her and her father pushes her away and gets stuck underneath himself. Philo and Mina take up the battle from there while Riho wakes Alan up and brings the firebombs to the location, and they start bombing the sap out of the mega treant. Mina and Riho use water and ice type spells and freezes him up, but the battle is still far from over. With its core still intact, the treant launches underground attacks with its roots and it makes another piece of ceiling fall over Selen as she is trying to get her father out. She tells him how she loves Lloyd and how she doesn't want to get married like that. Just then, the lizard boy arrives on the scene and saves them both. Marie tells him that they need his help to finish the monster off and says that he needs to destroy the Demon Lord's core to defeat him. Lloyd thanks her for giving him an opportunity to grow strong, and he jumps up the tree monster and crushes its core with his bare hands. Meanwhile, Alka is stuck in the ground and meets Shoma. It turns out he is working with the man who wants to take revenge from Alka, and he tells her that since the Holy Sword is out, he can do a lot more now. Later on, she comes back and meets up with the rest of the gang. She uses her powers to fix the building and heals the wounded and also alters the memories of everyone who's not really important to the plot. To reward her, Lloyd gives her a special massage using a technique he learned from his senior, Kiki-Yo, and ends up suplexing her to the ground. A few days later, Shoma meets up with Mikona and takes her to the old man in a church. The man asks her what he looks like to her and she says that he looks like a priest. He says that she is not correct but not entirely wrong either, and then asks Shoma why he brought her here. He says that she lost her loved one to someone else and wants to kill them. Hearing this, the guy tells him to give her the medicines, and Shoma hands over 2 medicines to her, continuing the powers of the Demon Lord Abaddon and the Treant Demon Lord. They ask her to drink one if she wants more power, and she wolfs down both bottles and starts transforming into a bug tree human hybrid overflowing with demonic powers. After that, she flies off into a dungeon and prepares to fight Lloyd. On the other hand, the academy students are called in front of the king for their next mission, which is to defeat a massive snake inside a nearby dungeon to show off their skills and potential to the civilians. The whole gang is chosen to participate in this mission alongside Conlan as their instructor. It also turns out that the king has become a cool hippie who wants to build his reputation back up after the last incident. Back in the city, the old man and Shoma talk to each other over some coffee, and they decide to go to the dungeon to meet the snake as it is their old acquaintance. Alka arrives on their table but misses them by a few steps and wonders where the old man, Sue, could have gone. On her way back, she runs into Marie and asks her if there is a dungeon nearby, and then takes her to the sky so she can use her Google Maps. She eventually jumps down and starts breaking walls and makes her way straight to the boss room. Meanwhile, Lloyd and the others are walking inside the dungeon, and Selen and Philo drag Riho aside and ask her if she really loves Lloyd or not. While they are having their girls talk, Lloyd walks on to find the huge snake. After being thrown inside the dungeon by Alka, Marie walks forward and runs into Mikona. She notices that she has been infested by a massive treant and wonders how to save her, but then Mikona wakes up and tells her that she had her loved one stolen from her by Lloyd. Marie starts wondering when her innocent boy turned gay, but then Mikona binds her with some roots and tells her to scream in pleasure to lure Lloyd out. Before you all dirty-minded people start commenting about cute anime girls and tentacle-like roots, Lloyd arrives on the scene and tells Mikona to let Marie go. She flies up and then launches herself at Lloyd for a claw attack, but Lloyd matches her with a punch and pushes her back. She then uses air treant powers to attack him with massive roots, but Lloyd dodges them all as if he has ultra instinct, and then throws a piece of it back at her. Mikona decides to go all out and uses Godspeed to push him back, and then grabs him by his head and drags him against the dungeon wall. Lloyd grabs her hand and throws her back like a bug and says that this much is normal in his village and tells her that he is from Conlan. Mikona thinks that he is mocking her by naming a village from fairy tales and attacks him with some roots once again. Just then, the other girls arrive on the scene and ask what was happening. Lloyd tells them that it is Makona and that he will defeat her and the huge snake and prove that he can become a great soldier as well. He tanks an attack to protect others and gets himself injured but pushes on despite it and fights her in hand-to-hand combat. Makona pushes her on the ground and says that she will now finish him off, and then attacks him with a drill-like root. But to her surprise, Lloyd grabs it and then uses it to yeet Makona out of the dungeon and into the sky like Team Rocket. With her gone, the huge snake comes out and reveals itself to be the guardian beast of Conlan village, and he says that Lloyd has grown so much. Its name is Vritra, the same beast with whom skin Selen's belt is made up of. Lloyd asks if he knows him and Vritra says that the last time they met, Lloyd was still too young and he came here because of what the lowly grandma did to him. She used Excalibur to cut off some of his skin and made an apron out of it. Just then, Sue walks in and asks Lloyd what he looks like to him, and Lloyd says that he looks like a bad person. He then asks him if he wants to become a hero and a savior who protects others and tries to offer him something. But before he can complete his sentence, Alka comes out from the ground and says that she finally found him. She then turns around and notices the huge snake and talks to him, but Sue uses this chance and jumps on Vritra's back and says that he will kill it, and with it the barrier around Conlan will be destroyed and Alka will lose all her powers as well. He destroys Vritra's core and Alka jumps in to kick him away, but it's too late. But to everyone's surprise, she is still as opus as ever. It turns out that Vritra took over Selen's belt, and Alka remembers that while working one day, she accidentally ripped a piece of the apron and then sold it off for cheap by calling it a cursed object. Sue says that it doesn't matter, and now he will go to unseal Conlan and reveal the last dungeon and then teleport away. After that, the dungeon starts collapsing and Alan walks in to save his friends. Alka teleports away and eventually they all make it out alive, and Alan gets the credit for defeating the snake and making the dungeon collapse. With this, he is presented in front of the king and is given an award of his choice, but he refuses to take any because he doesn't know what the hell is going on. The king and the other students think that he is being humble and start admiring him, and the king awards him with the title of Dragon Slayer because it sounds cool, and why not? The next day, Alka teleports in and tells Lloyd and the others that she will be taking them to Conlan for a bit, and teleports them away. The next day, the king receives a letter from the Jew Empire to request a friendly competition between the two nations to prove that their relationship has been restored. The king decides to send in his most opus hero in the country, Sir Dragon Slayer Alan. Nina is tasked with training him and making sure he doesn't run away, and the rest of the group walks to Conlan with Granny Alka. She says that she would have liked to teleport them all in, but her powers haven't restored yet, so they must take the longer route. Chrome and Colin also join them to meet Meltfin, who has been working in the fields of the village. Soon, they arrive near a magical gate and Alka calls out to the gatekeeper, Professor Yug. Yug is a dwarven royalty who likes researching things. She is also the one who gave Alka the idea to make an apron out of Vritra's skin to give to Lloyd as a gift. She turns out to be almost as unhinged as Alka herself, but before she reveals all her secrets, she pushes them through the gate and lets them enter the secret village. On the other side, they all notice that the village looks pretty simple and say that they had thought of it to have houses of gold and roads made from runes. But Lloyd says that it is just a normal village. But before they move on, Marie tells them to keep their eyes open because this village is anything but normal, and then asks Chrome, Colin and Riho if they noticed anything. They all look shocked and stressed and say that this place is bad news, and they sense dangerous power levels from everyone around them. After that, they look around and notice an average family going out shopping, and the kids and old people can jump over buildings, and they communicate by writing a message on a paper and throwing it thousands of miles away to the person they want to send it to. Besides that, when they are in a hurry, they launch themselves with a magic cannon, and their defense stat is so high that crashing into a mountain is no biggie. Soon, the villagers start recognizing Lloyd and welcome him back, and in the distance, we can see his grandpa, Period, walking in with a massive killer Priana on his back. Philo knows him as the legendary Period the Ogre Lord, and he is the guy who created the martial arts style that she practices. Lloyd introduces her, and the old man reveals that the martial arts style is actually the morning health and fitness routine that he and the villagers do every day to stay flexy. Learning that her martial arts style was just an aerobics exercise routine, Philo's world comes crashing down and she loses her mind. Still, the old man promises to teach her the style once again, and this makes her happy. Riho offers to take his luggage, and then they walk to Alka's mansion, and we see Riho exhausted as hell from carrying the massive fish. Colin and Chrome ask her about Meltfin, and she sends them back in the fields, and they finally get to meet their old friend and Colin's love interest. Melfin has only grown hotter from all the farming work he did here all this time, but it turns out to be so hot that he only wears a loincloth and nothing else. They all sit down and talk about him returning to the kingdom, and he says that even if he was being manipulated, he did play a big role in the coup, and besides that, he is happy living in this village and tending to the crops. All his military passion has been converted into agriculture, and he is ready to dedicate his life to the fields. Conlan wonders how she fell for this idiot, but then looks at his 6-packs and says yes. Meanwhile, Selin meets the elders in Lloyd's house, including some kids, and she hands them some marriage forms to sign so she can make her marriage with Lloyd official. But before they can do anything, they all hear the sound of something massive walking outside the house, and Alka says that she should have taken care of it long ago. Riho walks out to see what it was, thinking that she can maybe make money out of it, but it turns out to be a big-ass red dragon. She starts running away like a chicken, but then the kids walk out with some paper planes that they made out of the marriage forms and shoots down the dragon with them. The dragon runs away like the lizard he is, and Riho and Selin become depressed with this situation. Later that night, the elders throw them all a feast and they enjoy it together. Philo says that she got to learn a lot from the old master, but Pirit apologizes to her and says that he could only teach her the most basics of the basics, and he will teach her more the next time. Hearing this, Philo's soul starts leaving her body once again as she realizes that all that intense training was just the most basic of the basics. After that, they begin their feast and say how delicious all the food is. Melfin comments that he caught all the ingredients himself and how all the dishes are made out of fresh monsters. After finishing their meal, Riho helps with cleaning up, and Yug says that she will go far for this habit even if she is doing it for money. After that, the elders ask Lloyd about his girlfriend and which one was it, but Lloyd says that they are all just his classmates from the academy. They then suggest Riho and Philo for their good moves and helping nature, and this makes Selin really jealous for not earning any points. Yug suggests her to try a transformation with Vritra, and maybe this time he can be something more handsome instead of being a snake. But then her drawing of something handsome turns out to be too hideous. After that, they all go to bed and call it a day, while Melfin apologizes to Marie for causing all the trouble to her and her father. She forgives him and asks him about the man who manipulated him, and he says that he can't pinpoint his features, but that man asked him how he looked like to him. Marie realizes that she knows this saying from before, and the culprit must be Sue. On the other hand, Alka and Yug talk to each other about Sue wanting to open the last dungeon, and Yug says that maybe it's the right time to do so because humans have researched magic quite a bit now and it won't be like the last time. The next morning they go to the last dungeon to resurrect Vritra. Riho gets excited about getting all the treasure and making lots of money from it, but Yug explains that in reality this is not like your average dungeon. In fact, it is filled up with monsters and demon lords, and all the other dungeons in the world were created by dwarves like herself to hide this last dungeon. She then says that the Conlan village and its chief, Alka, are tasked with the duty to keep watch over the last dungeon so no demon lords break free, or else they would destroy the whole world. But right now, Alka is really weak in her current state, as her bond with Vritra made it so any damage that goes to her is transferred to him, and she can use his powers as well, making her into the Opus monster that we all know her as. After that, she says that if they open the dungeon using the key right now, it will be chaos, so they must restore Vritra first so Alka can regain her powers. Chrome and the others ask about the key, and she reveals that it is the Holy Sword, and she doesn't know how it was taken out of the stone, but Chrome says that now it is safely stored in the National Treasury, and Yug tells him to take good care of it with a devilish smile. With that out of the way, she takes the cursed belt away from Selin and prepares to cook up a new body for Vritra. She literally wraps him around some meat and starts making a medium rare steak out of him. After the whole cooking show, she puts him inside an egg and cooks it up for 3 hours. After that, she takes the egg out and says that the process is complete and Vritra is inside the Pope ball now. She then pinches Alka a bit and shows that she feels pain now, which means that her connection with Vritra has been broken for the time being. After that, she tells them that it is the perfect time for them to take revenge from her because right now she is only as strong as a normal 9-year-old kid with no common sense. They all start smiling, but then Alka looks at them with her demonic eyes and they decide to leave her alone. With that, Yug tells them that they should head back to the kingdom now as the exhibition match should be starting soon, and she has something to discuss with Alka alone. She walks with her outside the village into a forest and makes her fall in a deep hole. She reveals that instead of resurrecting Vritra, she sealed him for good, cutting off his connection with Alka. She is the one who has been helping Sue and Shoma cause all these attacks, and now she knows where the Holy Sword is thanks to her dumb friends, so now she will go and get it and unlock the final dungeon. She then seals the hole with a massive boulder and walks away to the entrance gate of the village. There she notices that everyone is there except Lloyd, so she tells them to go ahead and that she will come with him in a while, as she has some stuff to discuss with him that they can't hear as outsiders. They obliged and walk forward, and then Lloyd comes back and Yug tells him to go look for Alka as she is weak right now and can get herself in trouble. After that, she goes inside the gate and closes it behind her so no one from the village can come in her way. On the other side, she tells everyone that she closed the gate as she wanted to take a day off with Alka being without her powers and left Lloyd behind so he can keep her busy. Just then Meltfin joins the group and he is the only person from the village who is with them now. He says that he wanted to give Marie some vegetables, but they went ahead before he could give it to her, so he decided to walk out by himself. Selin and Philo feel sad because Lloyd won't be there with them, while Colin grabs her farmer and runs into the city with him. On the other hand, Riho is excited to sell all the expensive things she brought back from the village and gets a bag of gold out of it. On her way back, Yug offers to buy the mithril arm from her and says that she will even heal her injured arm underneath for free. Riho says that she will think about it and get back to her and goes on to meet up with Mina. They talk about the crazy things she saw in Conlan village and then they go to the hospital to see Raul. Turns out she has healed quite a bit now and has started to go back to her old ways as she writes a diary about ways to manipulate people and to rise up in society as a weak woman. Riho asks her about the man who told her to get the holy sword and she says that she can't really make out his features, but he had the habit of asking, "What do I look like to you?" Riho remembers Sue from the dungeon and puts one and one together and then asks for any more details about him. Raul says that she doesn't remember much about him, but she can remember someone else being there with him as well. Some child who made clicking sounds as if they were sucking on some candy. Hearing this, Riho thinks of Yug and gets a bad feeling about all of this. After that, she goes to the stadium with Mina and meets up with Chrome. He says that the kings of both nations are going to arrive soon and he wants her to run the security for the event. Chrome then takes Mina with himself and says that since Colin is not here right now, he wants her to fill in as the king's bodyguard for the event. Just then, they notice Alan zooming past them and hiding in the shadows. He begs them to help him out of this situation as people keep calling him by changing titles and have huge expectations for him. He says that he isn't as strong as Lloyd or anyone else and doesn't want ass to be kicked in the event. Riho and the others tell him to man up and do his best and then turn around as they announce that the event is about to start. Riho looks up in the king's booth and notices Sue and Shoma standing beside him and thinks that this looks like trouble. Soon, their king walks down and greets the students in the arena and Riho bends down and asks him to cancel the event as she thinks his life is in danger here. The king asks Chrome who she was and he introduces her as Princess Marie's friend, and the king takes her away and tells her to let's talk over some tea. Meanwhile, back in the village, Lloyd finds Alka in the hole and rescues her. She asks him how he managed to find her and he says that it's the same hole where he fell when he was little and Alka and the others came to rescue him. It is the same place where he resolved to become a strong soldier so he could protect others. With that, he tells Alka that the village gate is closed and he wants to get out somehow so he can keep his promise to Alan to see him fight in the exhibition match. Alka tells him to keep going towards the village and that she has a plan to get them back. On the other hand, we see Sue and Shoma meeting up with Yug and saying that they will finally achieve their true goal soon. She tells them that while she is super smart, she is not physically opus like the others, so they must protect her. Shoma says that it's fine and that's why they are here and points towards Mikona, who is sulking in the corner over her defeat against Lloyd. Back at the village, Alka puts Lloyd in a magic cannon and uses a lot of magic stones to blast him towards the kingdom. Once in the air, he uses some wind spells and accelerates himself towards the kingdom so he can make it back in time. Meanwhile, the match between Alan and the Jew Empire representative is about to begin. Alan begins the fight by swinging his axe at the opponent, but she flies up in the sky and reveals herself to be none other than Mikona, the bug tree human hybrid version. She rushes in and starts beating the living soul out of Alan, but at this point we all know his masochistic loves this stuff. As Sue is the king of the Jew Empire, he suggests that they form an alliance between the two nations, and with his powers to convert normal humans into strong order following soldiers and Azami's funds and resources, they will be able to conquer the world in no time. While they enjoy watching Alan getting beat, Chrome and Mina try to speak up against the offer, but Shoma quiets them down by releasing some of his killing intent and letting them know that they are still just as strong as cannon fodder. After hearing his offer, the king of Azami says that when he went under control of the demon lord and caused suffering to his family and the people of his kingdom, He promised that he won't let this happen again ever. To that end, he respectfully refuses their offer. With that established, Yug comes out of the shadows and says that now it's her turn to take the reins of this show. But then Selin, Riho, Philo and Marie surround her and say that they already know about her plan and why she left Alka and Lloyd back in the village. Yug looks at their dumb faces and asks what they plan to do to stop her, who is from Conlan village while they are a bunch of nobodies. Selin takes it personally but still doesn't fail to connect it to her love for Lloyd somehow, and says how she may be a nobody but Lloyd gave her the strength to grow strong and now she will fight on her own and defeat her. While Yug wonders what nonsense she just uttered, the other girls follow up by saying that from now on they will stop getting carried by Lloyd and will climb out of the yellow hell on their own. Yug then throws a lot of pokeballs out and releases a bunch of locust mons in the arena. She says that she has now taken everyone hostage and the king must decide if he will hand over the holy sword or not, but to their surprise, they already anticipated all this thanks to Riho's warning yesterday, and they had exchanged all the audience with trained soldiers. They all start fighting back, and inside the king's room, Meltfin arrives with his netherite sickle and hoe and starts fighting Shoma. They both jump down into the arena and start fighting, but Shoma reminds him that he is still a trash player even if he played some games in the Korean Conlan server. After that, he uses his challenger level gameplay and starts out playing him hard. Meltfin says that he heard about him when he was in the village and that he is a kid who got bored with the countryside and ventured off to live as an adventurer. He says that he will show him the true essence of countryside by showing him the beauty of agriculture, but Shoma says that he is mistaken and that he didn't get bored from the countryside alone. He got bored with this whole world. That's why he decided to tell Lloyd about the many things he can experience in the world and has decided to stir up some chaos to make it interesting for him. On the other hand, Alan manages to cut off Sue's arm, but it reattaches itself and Sue reveals that he is not truly a human but an existence created by runes, artifacts, and a human soul, and that long ago he was summoned as the hero to save this world by Alka, but over years as peace spread across the world, his existence got lost in history, and he started losing his purpose of being. Now he just wants to die, but to make that happen he must first kill Alka and then become the root of evil and make someone else a hero in his place. To that end, he has chosen Lloyd as his successor, and that's why he will continue to play the villain until Lloyd becomes a hero and saves the world by defeating him. It aligns with Shoma's goals, and that's why he has teamed up with the old man. Just then, Shoma drops inside the arena from the sky and tells Yug that Alka told him everything about her and how she failed to revive Vritra, so she ran away from the village. Yug starts wondering just how gullible he can be, but then Marie plays into it and tells Lloyd that Yug became mad and summoned all these bugs so they can't start Alan's match until they are cleared out of the arena. Lloyd starts taking care of the bugs, but then Yug throws her candy in the air and summons an earth golem. She then makes Mikona equip it and it starts fighting Lloyd on equal terms. Lloyd's offense proves to be higher, but the earth golem just regenerates itself and the fight continues for a long time. Eventually, Lloyd starts getting beat up, but Meltfin jumps in and gives him some talk no jutsu buffs, and they finally manage to defeat the golem. Besides that, Riho manages to wake Mikona up by offering Marie's clothes, and being the perverted insect she is, she flies out of the golem and runs away with the item. While Yug gets surprised by the golem's defeat, Selin manages to steal Vritra's sealed egg from her, and she threatens to punish and torture him if he doesn't come out and help them fight that very instance. Surprisingly, her threats prove stronger than Yug's seal and he breaks himself out, and this returns Alka back to her normal power as well. Yug turns towards Sue and Shoma for help, but they are busy recording Lloyd's brave fight against the golem and the locust mons because their goal is to make him a popular hero. Soon, Alka teleports in and defects all the insects with her Madara no Jutsu and tells Yug that she will end her now. But then Shoma and Sue rescue her and make an escape, and Sue tells her that he would have loved to put her down now, but he has some great footage of the hero Lloyd to edit, so he will see her later. With that, peace returns to the kingdom once again, and once again Alan is named the hero and given credit for saving the kingdom by the king. Lloyd and the others go back to their daily routine, with them using Marie's house like some restaurant, and Alka making her angry with random curses, and Lloyd looking to become a strong soldier. And just like that, Season 1 of Suppose a Kid from the last dungeon Boonies moved to a starter town comes to an end.